Friday Night Racing.
On Off the Ball.
And they're off.
Brought to you by Go Racing. Plan your day at the races at goracing.ie.
Yeah, you're very welcome along to Friday Night Racing on a Friday afternoon. If you're streaming this live on YouTube, on Twitter or on Facebook, facebook.com/offtheball, youtube.com/offtheball, or actually the best place is just to go to offtheball.com and you'll get it. But if you're listening to us this evening on News Talk Radio, then you're also very welcome as well. As ever, you can get in touch with us by text. That's 53106, or you can always just drop us a tweet or whatever. Now, Johnny is back from his adventures in the States, having been replaced very ably last week by David Jennings from the Racing Post, who tipped some winners in his absence. Very unusual for us on this show, but you're very welcome back, Johnny. I hope you're well.
Back. I met David earlier on and he gently reminded me about that, said he did a great time in the show and banged in the winners as well.
Yeah, well,
banged in the winners.
Exactly what we're looking for. Also with us this week is Fran Berry. Fran, how are you doing?
Yeah, great, Jerry. Yeah, lovely to be here.
We're not going to put you on the spot to ask for any winners, but you know, if you've got any, happy days too. Johnny, a lot happened when you went away and the whole world kind of fell apart for a few days there.
Yeah, it was... I kind of, if I go on holidays, I tend to maybe do a little bit of work when I'm there anyway, because I kind of find it hard enough to switch off. But you know, I was going to write a sort of a standard enough article about the weekend's racing, and then all of a sudden this flu broke out. And I have to be honest, I don't know much about equine flu. I don't know what Fran knows about it, but I would assume it's more than me. But essentially, it probably was an awful lot to do about not a great deal. And I think, you know, the Irish authorities initially banned British horses from running over here, but I think was it last Monday they said it's fine for British horses to run, and that was kind of symbolic because it takes 5 days to enter a horse in any event. So it was just kind of laying down the gauntlet for the British authorities to say, listen, you should probably just start racing again on Wednesday, which I didn't think they would when
the new cases happened.
Yeah, on Friday when the results came back from Donald McCain's yard. But you see, the flu is the flu, like, you know, and we all get we get man flu, we get colds or whatever. It does go around, but I don't think it's more contagious than actually dangerous. And like the talk of Cheltenham being under threat, like, seemed pretty fanciful, really. I mean, I think even one bookmaker was only like 5-2 that Cheltenham wouldn't take place, and I don't think that was really ever on the cards, was it?
No, I couldn't see that happening. You know, probably they had to call a halt when they did, but you know, the sooner they got back after that weekend was the right thing to do. And you know, I think you just have to wonder, was there any collusion between the Irish Turf Club racing authorities and the UK to give them a push to, you know, when they accepted the entries of English horses at the weekend? You just have to wonder, was there some sort of communication to give them the impetus to go back racing in England,
and maybe to help as well. It's like, oh, this is the spur. Look, you know, I actually think it's always better to err on the side of caution until you know exactly what you're dealing with, and kind of.
It wasn't that big of a weekend that they kind of sabotaged. Like, it was for the greater good, I think. But everyone's very relieved that we're racing again. But on the plus side, Irish racing benefited, I think, hugely last weekend, because everybody was watching it that wanted to have a bet in Britain or just wanted to watch racing, and we were able to showcase two very good meetings as well as Dundalk on the Friday night. So I think we got major publicity out for it that we wouldn't otherwise have.
Yeah, okay. Fran, you're still living in England, is that right?
Yes, yeah, I've been over there 3 years now, come March, yes.
Yeah, so what was the atmosphere like on the ground? Was there genuine panic about it, or was there a bit like, this is overcautious, or what were people saying to you? Yeah,
I'm obviously out of action at the moment, but you know, that week I was talking to a lot of my colleagues, and there was rumours, you know, going around it could be a month, you know, everything will be held up for a month, but nobody really knew. But then you know, we'll be back in a week, or we'll be back in a month prior to Cheltenham. You know, all roads lead to Cheltenham, and they'll do whatever they can to have that on. And you know, but when you kind of look back at it now, it was never going to probably run for longer than it did.
Yeah, okay, so you mentioned there that you were out, you had a fairly nasty fall.
Yeah, just over 2 weeks ago now, 3 weeks ago on Tuesday. Very, very lucky, nasty fall in Wolverhampton, and glad to be standing here walking around for it.
What happened?
Nice horse, being Williams, is Bamako de Châtelet. I've won a couple on him, and he just was making his run. He's probably going to be second or third. He wouldn't have won, but off the home bend in Wolverhampton, and I was going between two horses. I had loads of room to go in there. I was following Luke Morris through, and for whatever reason, just on the point of turn, the horse on the outside edge ever so slightly left. Might have, whether it caught his eye or what, but he just literally moved an inch into the horse beside him. I think he just caught his heel and went straight down. So I was on the ground kind of before I knew it, you know. So it all happened very quickly, but I got to, you know, unfortunately he came out over me and then nearly brought another horse down, so it was pretty nasty.
Yeah, how much awareness in the middle of it do you have that you're in a fall?
Time slows down. Yeah, you remember every kick and everything at the time. And I thought once my lad had gone by me, he's grey, so I could see bits of grey in that. And I thought that was it. And there was only 7 or 8 runners, I think. And I thought, well, it can't be any more. And then bang, another one came. So it's.
You got kicked by the follow through as well.
Yes, yeah.
It was a particularly horrible fall. Like if you saw it, and you can imagine being thrown out of a car at 40 miles an hour, but Fran kind of went like this, like heads, like it looked like you could have a serious neck injury and very possibly paralysis looking at it. Because also there was a bit of a delay in actually information. Even the following morning there wasn't much information on your general well-being.
Yeah, just when the team at the racecourse were very good, but you're going into hospital. You're I knew I've had back injuries before and quite serious, unlucky with a few injuries, but I knew there was something with my back wasn't right, and I got a very bad kicking on the right side of myself, so I knew ribs and things were gone, but my main concern was my spine, and I never lost feeling or conscience, but I knew that night when they said you've got 4 or 5 fractures, I wasn't surprised,
Yeah, there's the picture from the hospital. You look happier there than you do now, I have to say.
Well, I was on diazepam and morphine, so that kind of helps anyway. But
you look very, very happy, and good advertisement for whatever they help to get rid of the pain.
And I was after being released from being strapped to the bed for 2 days at that point, so that was nice too, to be able to just move around a bit,
That bit when you are conscious enough to know that the pain is really sore, but that you're concerned about your spine, and the bit where they say, no, it's actually okay. What's that period like?
Well, once you're moving, first of all, that's the main thing. And I know pins and needles, so I knew it wasn't, to one extreme. But, when you hear confirmation, that is, you're disappointed, because all you want to do is get back riding as quickly as possible. And, it's going to be 2 to 3 months when you hear them words anyway, at least. And, but then again, at least, they're stable. And, so it's a mixed emotions kind of thing, But the main thing is that, with a spinal injury, that you're able to move everything and,
When you've had falls before, have they been similar circumstances?
Yeah, 2016 I had a back injury. I've done a T6 vertebrae compressed in Doncaster, and probably the most serious one was 2005 in the Curragh. My horse was fatally injured, brought down Mick Canaan, and I ended up displacing my C6 vertebrae, and
that's kind of quite high up.
Quite high just there, so that required. It was very, very serious, very, very lucky to be walking around after it. I had a great team in the Mater Hospital in the spinal unit, and Keith Sinnott and his team got me right. And, only for them, I think there was 6 people in the ward. I was probably the only one to walk out of that batch of patients at the time, so that's how serious it was. And, I was very lucky. Here
we are 14 years later, and you're still putting your body through it. At any point do you think, okay, that's it now, I've made it this far?
What age are you now?
38 now, yeah.
But that's still fairly young for a flat jockey.
Young for a flat jockey, but I've been riding since I was 15, I've covered a lot of ground, but 2 young kids now, you do, weigh up all the risks and that, but I've got a good, nice prospects this season, nice people to ride for, and, I'd be keen to get back.
Yeah, because we do a new podcast called The Dadcast, and we had Andy Lee on it last week, and he talked about how having a child changed his outlook on life, where his job is to literally concuss his opponent to win a fight, and there's no ifs, ands or buts. It's for money. That's what the whole point of prize fighting is. You fight for a prize, and he just said it's very hard after you have a kid to get that killer instinct back. And it's not that like you're obviously worried about what you might be damaged into the future, and obviously you want to provide for them, but there is that tension between just getting the killer instinct and that ability to become somebody else in the ring. Did any of that happen to you as a father? I
think that fall, first of all, in 2005, completely changed my outlook on life. When you're in them units for 2 weeks and you see it all, and realise how lucky you are. Before that, I was a terrible loser. I used to take it and beat badly and wouldn't talk, and that really changed my outlook. At the end of the day, it became only a race and only a job as such, and since then, 10 years later, you've got a young child, and both of them aspects do give you an appreciation for life outside the saddle. But just find the time to spend time with them is probably my biggest consideration now, rather than thinking of, you know, can you go racing and do the job without, you know, with the same.
So it's not present every day when you're you're riding. So and you couldn't be really, because otherwise, you know.
Yeah, there's no point doing it then.
If you lose your bottle, you're probably gone.
Exactly. Yeah.
But what's the most dangerous fall you can have on the flat? Or what's the most dangerous thing that can happen? Is it how you hit the ground? Is it a horse coming behind you? Or in your own experience?
Well, the thing about it, flat is when you get a fall, you know, if you're taking an obstacle with a jump, as a jump jockey, you've got that extra second or two to, you know, on landing to anticipate it, and you might know something's not right. But generally, like, I've had horses unfortunately break legs and they've just disappeared from under you, and then you're in a tightly bunched field, so it's look at a draw if they bring somebody down or come over you. So it's really the less time to react, and particularly on all-weather surfaces. If you can imagine a golf ball going in a sand bunker, it just stops dead, and that's what happens when a horse or jockey falls on the all-weather. You don't roll or slide like you do in grass.
What's the give like when you hit the all-weather like you did?
It's like hitting a concrete road. You know, I got a fall in Dundalk 7-8 years ago, and went in for an X-ray the next day, and the radiographer said we were in a car crash because I was so bruised and black and blue all over.
I don't think that's conveyed on the telly, because you see this notionally soft surface that has like a bit of give in it, which it obviously does, but it's probably like being thrown onto an AstroTurf pitch at 40 miles an hour. There's not much there for you, like, and you can imagine a video of being thrown out of a runway or whatever, and then it's probably not much different to that, and then also that it just happens like that because you don't know what's happening on the flat. Whereas as a jumper, obviously you half expect it will happen sooner or later, and that's why the flat falls are so dangerous, I think, anyway.
Yeah, you'll get less than, but when it does happen, I think the stats are, I remember Adrian McGoldrick saying 1 in 3 flat falls is a fracture, whereas 1 in 12 or 20 jump falls is a fracture, you know, so it's and usually, unfortunately, with flat falls, tends to be spinal type injuries, you know.
Yeah. You started out as a jump jockey?
Yeah, I was always obviously quite tall for a flat jockey, and I started riding when I was 15, but I was always battling my way from day one, really, you know. I was in school and every evening walking the roads and trying to keep my weight right, and there was no all-weather racing back then. Dad was training, and I was schooling jumpers anyway, so I thought, why not start riding a few? And it's funny, jump racing actually got me going on the flat, you know, a couple of good winters over jumps. And then going back to the flat, it kind of gave you a bit of momentum. How
did that work? Because I guess now there's far more traffic, you know, trainers are training for both all the time, but certainly that wasn't always the case, was it? And there aren't that many jockeys who go from being jumpers to flat jockeys, is that right? Not really. A bit of a trend in England the last number of years. Graham Lee and
Jim Crowley
and Dougie Costello, they've all done extremely well.
Timmy Murphy,
yeah. But it's you usually either go, when you go from the flat, you go jumping, and that's it, you know, due to weight mainly.
Yeah. So how did you manage that?
It took a lot of work. After winning Cairwani in Cheltenham in, God, it's 20 years this March coming, and won the Coral Cup on him, I just decided I was getting good rides on the flat, and things the previous season had been good, so my weight was not bad. I was 9'4" or 5", and I just made a concerted effort to get down to 8'10", 8'11". If I could ride a dash, you could ride 8'11" fillies and maidens, and once you could do that, you nearly had a chance of a ride in every race. So,
right.
And I kind of went from there. By the end of that season, I'd got the second jockey job with John Ox. So, you know,
and that was it.
Well, how long ago was that now? Because when I was starting to follow on racing, I'd immediately associate you with John Ox.
Yeah, Cairwani, as I said, it's 20 years ago this March coming. So that was 99, and you know, Dearly was my first group winner, and that was for John Ox in the Blandford Stakes. That was September 99, so that's where the relationship stemmed from.
It's sad to see John Ox's kind of, just as the numbers have fallen so much. I think he didn't have many winners last year, because even though his kind of legacy is probably assured, like I think he's just such a nice guy, as well as everything else, and a good trainer. You just wish him well. Yeah, totally. He's a gentleman, and you know, it's probably one of the most enjoyable times of my career. It was being associated with John and working for him and Catherine and his family and the staff there. Just hard to believe, you know, he trained See the Stars, and within 3 years things are gone downhill through no fault of his. He's definitely not training any better or worse, or any worse than he ever did. His standards are still the same, and just go out of fashion. And perhaps in Ireland it's harder to land them big owners than it might be in other jurisdictions, because you have to take on Coolmore every day, so it's, you know, it's not the most tough. Yeah. Was he a victim of his own style of being so patient, or was it just one of them things, do you think?
Yeah, he's an ideal trainer for owner breeders. You know, that'll be prepared to take that time, and you know, come mid-season 3-year-olds will mature into that 10-mile plus type horse, and you know, a lot of the newer breed of owners want Royal Ascot type 2-year-olds, and you know, and then you get pigeonholed maybe as being capable or suited to training a certain standard of horse or type of horse, and that's possibly a part of it too.
What do you make of the alliance with Patrick Prendergast then?
Very interesting, yeah. I was reading at the time, and you know, I've spoken to a couple of people that are in the know a little bit about it, and I think it'll be very good for both parties. You know, the fact that it fills John's stable up, and as a team, I'm sure it worked very well. Patrick is, I wrote a good few winners for Patrick, and a very, very capable horseman and trainer, and I think a mix of the old and new could work very well. And Patrick was very adept at training sharp 2-year-olds. So
it's contrast in size nearly.
Yeah. So you know, I think it's going to be interesting to watch. I think it could be good for everybody involved.
One of the things that we've kind of discovered over the last while is that there's a very different opportunity and option for people who are becoming jockeys, that a decision has to be made at some point to turn pro or not turn pro. It sounds like you never had any doubts. It was like, I'm turning pro as a jockey as soon as I possibly can. Yeah,
well, you could get a apprentice licence at 15 back then. You could only get an amateur licence. So I rode my first winner at Maybank Holiday Monday in Navan, and I was back in school the next day doing my junior cert. So
junior cert?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So
remember your first winner?
Oh God, yeah. Loch Mogue, she had a terrible draw. Bank Holiday Monday, Maybank Holiday, she was drawn 23 in Navan.
What was the trip?
5.5 furlongs in Navan, and
that's straight though, isn't it?
Straight, yeah. You know, but at the time you think you're drawing the wide outside.
Yeah, the stand side.
Stand side. Yeah. But I've learned that over the years, Navan, that's not a bad thing at all. But at the time you think it was, and I should have won our previous run, Tipperary, quite ordinary and weak in the finish. Probably hasn't changed anyway.
Who trained her?
And my dad, Frank trained her. She was a good filly for Francis Flood previously, and a family friend, Tom McParland, gave it to us on a free lease, so it was in my mum's colours, and it was a bit.
That's class.
There's his father, Frank. Frank would be why I use two words when none will do type operator, but another of the gentlemen of the game. But Fran actually reminded me there of this thing that he used to do, mainly at Leopardstown, but probably other tracks as well. When during the flat months, Leopardstown would water to an extent in previous meetings, and the ground would change a bit, just because Leopardstown is also a jumps track, and the flat track up the stand side would at times become much faster if you forfeited ground but you came up by the stand side. And Fran would just literally abandon the rest of the field and come way up the stand side and win races by 4 or 5 lengths on horses that were probably not even favourites. And you obviously had a bit of tactical acumen.
Yeah, just something that I twigged onto, maybe, if you like. I used to not be happy if Lorcan were putting outside rail in Leopardstown, because it wouldn't give you the scope to go wide, if he funneled it in. And it's something that worked very well for me. Also, Leopardstown, you get a lot of trouble down the inner and running, that dip, and it's very inviting to try and take a gap. But being a left-handed track, a lot of horses tend to drift in left anyway, and trying to get a run through the field is quite difficult. And if you switch out and get momentum on a faster strip, it should help you. Yeah,
it's a bit of a ballsy move though, right? Because everybody in the crowd is going, what the hell is he doing?
Well, if it goes wrong, like Patrick Mullins did it on a horse in Clonmel that was beaten about a neck, Castlebawn West, and like Matt Chapman straight away after race, the best horse was second, and he was probably right, but like you did that for a reason, do you know what I mean? You went wide for either the horse needed to be wide or you just went for better ground.
I think a lot of it is to do with who you're riding for, and if they have faith in you to let you
tell them beforehand.
Yeah, I would often mention it, maybe not. Things can change out of stalls, depending on the pace of the race, and if you'd rain through the day or something, which in Irish summers we would have a bit. So
but the mad thing is, then you'd see other races where all of a sudden they're all coming there because Fran has just told them that's the best of the ground, so you kind of only have one shot at this, like, if it works.
Yeah, exactly. And then if you end up the widest of the wide, you're too far out of it, so it's a balancing act. But that's something you learn with experience over a number of years, and I think that's something in England I didn't realise till I've gone over. It's only in the last season that I really began to learn the nooks and crannies, if you like, of different tracks, and which I knew intimately at home.
Well, let's talk about that, because things are obviously going really well in Ireland. You have 1,000 winners up in your career. You've reached a stage of your life where no one would in any way blame you for kind of coasting out the last 4 or 5 years of your career. But instead, you're like, no, I'm up in sticks. and I'm heading off to England.
Yeah, exactly. After I'd been in my head. Actually, I'd been in my head to make a move somewhere at some stage, and in the previous 5 or 6 years prior to moving to England, I'd done winters in Japan, which was very, very good. 2 or 3 months a year, and it was really, financially it was very good, but equally the racing is top class and massively good contacts out there still, and that was coming to an end basically because they've changed the criteria for foreign riders to get in, so it was going to be difficult for me to get in the future. And when I rode my 1000 winner, I just said if in June or July of that 2015 year, I said if I don't make a move now with a 1-year-old child, I'm not going to do it in 3 years' time, with schools and everything becoming a consideration. So I spoke to Tony Hind. He's a good friend of mine. He was my agent until this season. He's cut back a little bit, but he was all for it. Richard Hughes was retiring and off his books, and but he said I wouldn't let you come over unless you had a job. So he put myself and Rafe Beckett in touch, And
how like that conversation can go a bunch of different ways, but if you're coming to me and you're moving from Ireland, I need to know that you're committed to it and it's not just like a 6-month thing and you're going to go home.
Yeah.
So obviously for you it was something that you wanted to get out of Ireland for, just to see what it was like.
I just wanted to change, to be honest, as in I wanted to do something completely new. We tied with the ideas of maybe going to Australia, maybe going somewhere, give something a go for a couple of years. I just felt that at 35 I could end up in 3 or 4 years' time, maybe on a downhill slope here or getting stale, or and I like a new challenge, and I like testing myself a little bit probably.
Is it a life move, or is it something that like you'll see how it goes and come back and you want to settle in Ireland?
We'll just see how it goes. I still have currently building a house at home, and that's been a long-term project for the last 7-8 years, and it's getting near fruition, so that'll be there whenever.
Must be a big house. 7 or 8 years. Yeah.
It takes a bit of time to save it up, save up money for it.
It's like toilet by toilet, living room by living room,
brick by brick.
Yeah, and so obviously we talked about there being training in the family, like you've clearly got racing steeped in your DNA. What happens when you finish being a jockey? Yeah,
it's the unknown question, really. Definitely not training horses. I've lived with it. Dad trained for 10 or 12 years, and I think that was actually one thing that I brought to the table, maybe as a jockey, that I've know what trainers go through and owners go through, and I've seen it from the inside out. So I've always been conscious of giving feedback to owners and trainers to try and make their job as easy as possible, because 9 times out of 10 things don't work out as people hoped, and you got to play the game, and without doing any bullshit or anything, but just steer them in the right direction, and hopefully
this horse isn't going to win today.
Yeah,
no matter what we do here.
Find a trip or find a grade or some positivity to build on. But I think I haven't had that grounding looking at Dad training, but economically and for the stress, and it's a 365-day year job. It's pretty full on.
Where does that leave you then in terms of your options?
I've in England I've done a lot of media work in the last few years, so I'd like to branch out into that. Sky Bet and Sporting Life do a good bit of work for, and that's very enjoyable. But how you tie it into, I'll just keep thinking about it. I've do a good bit of work for a couple of bloodstock agents sourcing horses for Asia, so you could do a mix of everything, in a way, but it all depends. If you stop riding in around your 40s, you have time to do a new career. If you're in late 40s, early into your 50s, then
you're a bit
hard.
I think you've jockeys, when you ask them about that, they kind of fall into two boats. Like, I might go training, or I'm definitely not going training, because they just know that it's just dealing with owners, and I don't know how trainers deal with the bad days, because like Desi Hughes had I think he had a year or two of aspergillus in the stable, which he couldn't detect for a long time, and lost a scatter of owners because the horses were just out of form, and you wouldn't know it at home because they obviously the gun isn't put to their head, and then when they go to the track, they just weren't running their races, and like that would nearly have ruined them as a trainer. And that's obviously an extreme example, but just when horses go out of form and you have to explain to the owner, when you have nothing to explain, in that I actually don't know, I can't explain this.
Big time, as you said, you come in, you tell the owners this is working well, we expect to run to wherever you think it'll run.
They could have good money on the horse.
Yeah. And then you come back in and everybody's scratching their head. So I suppose after a while you begin to lose faith in the person who's telling you this, So it's and then things snowball from there, So it's probably more so now. It's gone such a fickle game. There's
social media as well, and all that.
Call lists. Everybody's aware of how your form is, and that's it's just very hard to break that circle if things are going bad, I'd say,
Yeah. As well as that in Ireland as well, if like Aidan O'Brien is so strong, Joseph is on the verge of nearly becoming the biggest trainer in Ireland if he isn't already. I wouldn't be surprised if Donnacha ended up training sooner or later because of he's been on this show. So you have a lot of powerful yards on the flat and obviously jumps as well, and it's daunting enough, I would say, to start off. So I admire any young trainer who gives it a go.
Yeah, to try and get into that must be pretty difficult. Exactly. Just in terms of the media stuff, then, like, because you have a background in jumps as well, are you comfortable talking about both? Is that like part of the ambition, is to cover both? And
yeah, if the opportunity came along, I still follow jumps very, very closely, and it's anything to do with racing, I'm pretty up to date with. Yeah,
because some of the people who come in are like, I watch my own races and I do a little bit of research about what I'm up against, but that's it. Like, you are obviously at a stage of your career now where you're watching everything. Yeah, I'm a bit of an anorak. When it used to be the Sporting Life and Racing Post, you used to devour the two of them, and now it's all online. So the physical papers now, and. I think it's just good to be aware of what's going on around in the racing world too, and the racing world has got smaller too. A lot of countries I've travelled to, be it Singapore, Japan, you're getting more and more information out of there as well, and breeding and everything. So it's interesting. What was Japan like? How does that come about? Because we've had various people come and talk to us a bit about life in Japan, but it seems it is a completely different culture, and you can't walk around and chat away to people, and were you on your own for that? Yeah, Laura came with me most winters, bar the winter she was pregnant with Jordan. It came about. It was very hard to get a contact to get in there initially, and my one was pure luck. I won in Pop Rock in Galway.
Takashi,
Kodama, who was a Japanese bred horse who was second in the Melbourne Cup, and in a roundabout way came to Takashi Kodama in the Curragh. So I've been riding to work, and he won in Galway on the Friday, and it received huge publicity in Japan. And literally from there, Takashi's friend, who's one of the leading trainers, Noriyuki Hori, who's trained winners in Dubai now and Hong Kong, he arranged for myself and Ryan Moore through Takashi to go out. So basically, for 6-7 winters, Ryan I do November, December, and I do January, February. So you can only do 2 months, can you? You're limited to 3. Yeah, limited to 3. So a couple of times I left Ireland early and might have done 3 weeks in October or something as well. So but that's the maximum you can do in any calendar year. Right. And is it madness? Is it? Yeah, it's horse racing out there is like Premiership football in England. It's huge, really good, really, it's on a national level. A bad Saturday in Tokyo, in Nakayama, in the coldest day in January, to be 25,000-30,000 there. Wow. A Group 1 day I was lucky enough to ride the Japan Cup in November, just gone, but their biggest race of the year is the Emperor's Cup in October, and there'll be 120,000 people at that, Must be some buzz. The noise is just electric. You can feel the energy coming from the stands, particularly the Japan Cup to start is right in front of the stands. Wow. So you've got that, volume of people just, and as the horse begin to load, they start clapping, and, it's pretty... How do you get on with Ryan Moore, actually? Good, yeah, get on well. Yeah, it takes a bit of knowing, but he's got a dry sense of humour, as you do. Yeah, he does. He's a good guy, and he's quite helpful to younger riders and that, So yeah. The Pat Smullen news, how much did that affect you? Because you would have been good friends with him as well. Yeah, it really did. Pat be one of my closest friends. Himself, Declan McDonough, Kevin Manning. We used to travel together every day, go racing. Like we'd go racing together. Try and kill each other on the track and go home together. So we're very tight, and it was just so hard to believe at the time. I actually gave up a couple of rides the next day once I heard it, and flew over to see him in hospital, and to see him last February, and where he is today, it's nothing short of a miracle, and it's great. It's really good. That is the other aspect of the business that maybe doesn't get that much play, is that you do all go out and try and slit each other's throats, but at the end of it, I think there is an understanding that it's very high risk what you do, and so you kind of need to stick up for each other as much as you can. Yeah, you do, and you need to have respect for each other. You need to put, to push the boundaries a little bit, but you need to have respect for your rider. And I was, when you're younger, you probably have more roused, and obviously you learn. But Mick Canaan said to me one time, he said, you got to learn how to separate the professional and the personal. So basically what goes on the track, and then personally, then your personal relationships with your colleagues. So if you can separate the two. And were you not great at that at the start? Was that the type of thing? You used to have Jamie Spencer, myself, Shane Kelly. We all started off same time, and be days we wouldn't talk to each other for 3 or 4 days after we might have tightened each other up or something, and we laugh about it now, but it's just a part of growing up, I suppose. And do you see the same things happening with the younger jockeys now, where they're like moody in the weigh room, and you're like, Yeah, you do, and you know,
these days, millennials.
They keep you young anyway. Yeah, I enjoy the banter and with them, and you know, but you got to remember they are 16 or 17 too, and you know, you got to bear that in mind. You know, they're doing an adult's job with the mentality of a teenager, and more so since I've had kids, it gives me a better relation and probably a bit more patience with guiding them rather than snapping at them, I suppose.
Who do you like coming up from the young riders?
In England, Tom Marquand is doing very, very well. He's extremely dedicated. You know, he's riding for Richard Hannon and William Haggis. He's got, you know, very popular with both of them. Ross Ryan has had a good season. If he can, last year as an apprentice, if he can keep his weight, he's got a chance. But
some of the female young riders over there as well.
Yeah.
Holly Doyle is impressing me a fair bit.
Yeah,
I think she might even be dating Tom Marquand.
That's right, yeah.
But you know, I don't watch English racing day to day, but like herself, Poppy Bridgewater, there just seems to be a nice spread of younger riders there in general now.
Yeah, definitely. And you know, with the all-weather racing, the amount of racing in the winter, not as many riders. They do get more opportunities than they might have done in the past. Nicola Curry's a very good rider. She's excellent. For me, she's probably the leading female rider at the moment.
Do you think she's the best?
Yeah, she will be. She's, you know, she's a bit of age on her side though. Nicola's 24. You know, she was a slow starter, and you know, she's really kicked into gear the last 2 seasons. Had Richard Hughes mention, you know, apprentice Richard, which would be a benefit to anybody, you know. So, but there's a good spread of young riders coming on, and it's just a question of getting the opportunities, I suppose. You know.
Who's the best senior rider? Can't be yourself, no.
Frankie, yeah.
Frankie.
Of the current lads riding in England, yes.
Frankie is better than Ryan Moore.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Oh, that's controversial. Why is he better than Ryan Moore?
He's just, you just have to ride against him. You know, Ryan is obviously brilliant. You know, Mick Canam when he's in his prime, and even at the end, you know, see the stars time that he was the ultimate. He had no flaws, no weaknesses. And
same with Frankie?
No, because Mick could pitch up in Roscommon on a Monday and give a horse equally as good a ride as he given in an arc, whereas Frankie on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday might not be as committed. You know, we're Mick, no matter what level or grade. He, you know, even the last year he was riding, he went to Sligo for John. I used to curse him because you
wouldn't be getting the ride.
Yeah. But you know, but he had that commitment. And
so what like when you're talking about Frankie, what is it that he can do on a horse that sets him apart from everybody else?
The bigger the day, the more live he becomes, and he's just at a stage of his career. He's got so much experience now.
51 now, Frankie, is he?
48, is he, or 9? Yeah, 48 or 9. He's not quite 50, he's 49 maybe.
Can Google it.
How do you know that in a race? What does that mean for when you're up against him and you're kind of glancing over your shoulder,
48,
just a bit ahead of you?
Yeah, well, he's obviously got fantastic horses with John Gosden, you know, riding, and I think riding for John in the last number of years has been the best thing that's ever happened to Frankie, because they have such a understanding and faith in one another that he's allowed to be a free thinker, if you like, and, you know, ride the horses as he feels fit through a race, whether it's planned or not, and he just gets on, and whatever comes to him, he does it. You know, he doesn't have to be hamstrung by orders, or you know, and he's got that flair, and you know, he's and in the finish his athleticism, and you know, you wouldn't think he's 48 or 49.
Who did you learn your finishing? Because I'd often say you're one of the more unique riders. Certainly your whip style and the finish is I don't know, I can't exactly explain it, but you would have a unique style. I'd always be able to spot you if you were riding in a race. But did you base that on anyone yourself, or
when I first started, the American style had just kind of arrived his time at Generous and Alan Munro, and I had pictures of Alan Munro.
I used to love him as well.
Alan Munro and Generous all over my beating Swab Dancer in the Irish Derby, and he did Toy the Iron and the real low crouch and the whip up, and it was totally, you know, compared to the Pat Edgeries of that era, totally new. And then obviously Frankie came along, and because I was tall, Richard Hughes was somebody, you know, I focused on and tried to
hard to emulate.
Yeah, you know, that was the 1 year old, so I had the same coloured saddles and boots as him and everything like that, as you're a fan more so when you're a kid. But you know, you just got to find what suits you physically then as well. And as you get older, you develop. And even in the last 10 years I've been doing a lot of fitness work and things through being injured you learn about, and you know, physically I feel better. Well, prior to the fall I felt better than I ever had, you know. So
really, what kind of stuff are you doing? Like, is it yoga and stretching and all that kind of things?
Combination of everything. Yeah, every winter I'd try and do something new, you know, like yoga, Pilates one winter, every, you know, with a personal trainer for 10-12 sessions, and I have a routine that I follow now. And I used to go to Santry, to end a king in Santry, you know, to more to iron out weaknesses that were there through injury.
Right.
And you know, I used to do CrossFit in the winter, you know, different things just to see what you can bring to the table. And I think it's very important to keep trying to improve, you know, if you can find something that, you know.
Does that have a knock-on impact on your diet then? Are you finding you're actually managing your diet nutrition better now than you would have been as a youngster trying to make that weight the first time?
Yeah, totally. Once I got to a stage where you stop growing and your weight has settled down, you know what you can and can't do, but it's got better over the years. You know, I take protein shakes now, I take, you know, different things, you know, that you wouldn't never heard about 10 years ago. You know, I met a guy called Daniel Davies, he's quite a prolific food blogger. I've met him and he's put me onto some things like that. It's been a big help, and it's just like everything, it moves on and you got to kind of keep current, and if it helps, why not, you know? Yeah,
no, for sure. Let's move on, because we want to talk about the racing this weekend. So as we said at the start of the show, David Jennings tipped a winner in Riders on the Storm at Punchestown last week to bring our Tote Irish Injured Jockeys Fund to €2,014. So let's try and deliver another winner this week with our €100 charity bet from the Tote. You can get the Tote versus the SP best price guarantee on all Irish racing this weekend on thetote.com. What have you gone for this week, Johnny?
Are we going through the race or just giving the tip?
We do your tip first, right?
Yeah, I'm going to give, should mention Geno as well for those tips, but every time that horse runs, I can't get the Doors tune out of my head. So, like, I was in the States and I remember I was in a bar and I got a chance to go up to the machine to put on a tune, and I put on Riders in the Storm because I'd been looking at it that day and it was in my head. And then he goes and wins.
It's called a jukebox, is that what?
The jukebox, sorry, jukebox.
There's a real music machine they have in New York over beyond. You wouldn't see the like of it at all.
I don't see jukeboxes anymore, but anyway, that's what they are. But Riders in the Storm did the job nicely for DJ. The Pretend Percy doesn't run in the big race on Saturday, which is a bit disappointing. But it is what it is. He might go to Cheltenham now without a run over fences, which will be intriguing. But trainer Pat Kelly just does his own thing, and it's still a very good race. Like, the three horses have ratings of 157, 161, 161, 164. The Red Mills chasing Goran tomorrow, but I like Kilulta Vic at the prices. He's about 3-1. And I don't see him being that much inferior to Monolly. I mean, it actually looks strange. If this is right, he's getting £7 off Monolly and he's rated the same as him, and he's a lot bigger in the betting. I don't get it, and I think his jumping is obviously a bit of a handicap, but I think he's a great chance.
Okay, so Kilulta Vic
in the 2:30 at Gorn.
In the 2:30 at Gorn on Saturday is Johnny's tip. A reminder that Friday Night Racing is brought to you by GoRacing.ie. If you are going to Gorn Park, then get on to GoRacing.ie and you can get all the information that you need for a proper day at the races out. And if you just want to see the cars and all that kind of stuff as well, check out GoRacing.ie. So let's actually talk about some of the other races this weekend. The Red Mills Chase also at Gorn, a bigger field.
It is the Red Mill, or the Red Mills Hurdle, sorry.
The 3:05?
The 3:05. I'm not sure I had that on the list of races to go through, but I can talk about it.
There you go.
Take a stab.
I should mention as well, my tips on other platforms did very well last weekend. I just happened not to be here, but that was probably typical enough of the way things happen. It's a game of cycles, but the other, I do like one of this. Fran might be able to help a bit because his dad obviously is the face of the JP McManus operation. Dorasso, I don't know if you know anything about this horse.
I don't, and I wouldn't get told if I rang him now and asked.
But I'm your son. That doesn't matter. Dorasso actually ran the same day as Presenting Percy in that race, and he didn't get 3 miles, but he's dropping back in shape. I think he's a very interesting horse for Joseph, who has just been in sensational form. It's amazing how many winners he's had. So that's in the 150 at Gorn in the Red Mills Trial Hurdle.
Okay, so what races do you want to talk about here, Johnny?
Yeah, so the big race is obviously British racing is back, which is great. We've some very good races at Ascot over the weekend. We may see 1 or 2 horses with definite Cheltenham credentials. Did They Leave You Out too? Running in the Ascot Hurdle is another McManus horse that's very interesting. And I think he's a decent chance as well. Terrafor takes on Clandazobo in the Denman Chase at 245. I like Terrafor there at the prices. And the big race then is the Ascot Chase, it's a grade 1 at 355. This is a cracking race. Waiting Patiently is well named because we don't see him very often. He hasn't run since the King George. He was only 4-1 in the King George when he unseated. And as you can see on the screen there, even if it's a small field, there should be a bit of pace on with the likes of Charbel in it. Foxtrot, Little Log Surname, they could all be handy enough as well. And Waiting Patiently will be well named in the race. I don't know if you followed the jumps so much. Brian Hughes is a jockey that I think, I don't know if he was riding, if he wasn't riding in the north maybe, or if he were riding the top Irish yard. I think he's absolutely top class. Maybe he's just because he doesn't get an awful lot of top grade 1 mounts maybe. But
yeah, he's a fantastic rider. I've looked at him. He's one of those jockeys that you really enjoy looking at in a race. True race, he's smooth. He looks also to be in control. Ex Kevin Prendergast's apprentice,
That's right. Yeah.
Nice chap. Quite quiet. I haven't seen him for a long time, but he's very much an underrated rider. As you said, he kind of got forgotten a bit about in the north of England. He's getting 100+ winners every year, finishing 3rd or 4th in the table.
He'd be doing very well out of the game financially in relative terms, but in terms of headlines, maybe not as much.
Yeah, he's under the radar, and that horse. It was a shame what happened to him in the King George because we've been waiting a long time to see him. And he's potentially a Gold Cup winner in waiting, or a Ryanair Chase if he goes that route. But
Waiting Patiently.
Okay. See, he's not entered in the Gold Cup, which
that's right.
Which mystifying, really. I actually only discovered that myself. But at Navan on Sunday, then they've the Boyne Hurdle at 220. Another McManus horse, Off You Go, is quite interesting there. First try over 2.5 and coming out of handicaps now because he's probably way too high. And we also have the 325, the 10 up Novice Chase, in which I like Chris's Dream for Rachel Blackmore and Henry de Bromhead. But very good racing, could do with a bit of rain. It's a lovely day again today. I don't know, is it ever going to rain in Ireland ever again? The way, it just seems utterly insane. I can't remember a proper wet day for months and months and months and months.
I think we had one while you were away, to be honest.
Did we?
We had one wet day while you were away.
Waiting for a rainy day. But in fairness, the ground needs us. The ground really needs. I'd worry about the soft ground horses. It's mid-February now. When are they going to get a chance to actually run them? And it's very costly for owners because if you owned a heavy ground horse this winter, you've been screwed basically.
You can't get them out.
They just can't run, and it would say if it's 1,400 quid a month or thereabouts, that adds up to a lot of money without having any chance. And you can't really go to Britain because it's not much different over there.
Yeah.
So there's no real option for you to run your horse.
At this stage, you have to assume the ground is going to be very fast at Cheltenham.
No, well, they'll water it at Cheltenham
to get it to.
Yeah, Leopardstown. I wasn't really happy with Leopardstown in the sense that for the racing festival on the Sunday there were 24 or whatever non-runners. But the problem for Leopardstown was there was frost forecast, and you can't water with frost. So they had a choice of watering a week or so in advance or not watering in advance of a forecast that suggested they should be okay, but they weren't okay, and the ground was fast on the Sunday and there was a spate in non-runners, and it was very unsatisfactory. But at the same time, I'm not a groundsman, and I don't know the answer, but that won't happen at Cheltenham.
Yeah, all right. Fran, great stuff. Thanks very much for joining us. You're back out, you hope, in...
Yeah, mid-April, sometime the Craven meeting, Newmarket, the Greenham meeting in Newbury, something like that.
You go to Cheltenham?
I do, yeah. Last number of years, one miss it, I go definitely on the Tuesday, and it's only an hour from us, an hour and 10 minutes, so on a Friday, I'm quite good friends with Rellon's family, so presenting Percy lined up, and I'm out of action now. I might as well go support him in the Gold Cup if he does appear.
Are you sore at the moment?
Not too bad. Ribs are the worst, actually. Back injuries fine, but ribs have settled down a bit, but I don't like coughing or sneezing too much at the moment.
So you're not doing any activity really?
Well, I've been in Oaksey House in Lambourne, and basically since under 2 weeks after the accident, which was last Monday, I'm in a hydro pool and
the physio.
So it's a great machine in that you can get in. There's a treadmill in it. You can do a half an hour's walking in the water. And
you're obviously somebody who has embraced sports science. So is that like something that you kind of realised early on, that if you're going to get an edge, it's going to come from knowing as much as you possibly can about where the science is going?
Yeah, definitely. And I've always had to battle with my weight. So if you can make it easier on yourself and keep your energy levels up, and you'd always be worried about about your long-term health if you're cutting corners. So, you know, a combination of that and men's health and things like that you'd read up on and whatnot, you know.
Yeah, no, you did right. Fran, great stuff today. Thanks very much for being part of Friday Night Racing this Friday afternoon, brought to you by GoRacing.ie. We are pretty much done. Johnny has hopefully tipped a winner. He's back anyway. That's all we need to know.
I should give a mention to Brian Kavanagh, the HRI CEO, who I was just walking down one of the little alleyways by Dane Street, and it actually came into my head how small Dublin is and how great it is. And literally a second later, I bumped into the head of Horse Racing Ireland just crossing the street. So we went for a coffee and we started talking about Cheltenham. And he's a big Leeds United fan, and Leeds United are playing Reading on the Tuesday of Cheltenham. And I kind of invited myself along to the game. So it's always nice during Cheltenham to get away. I got to a Coventry game during Cheltenham last year, the year before, just a game that's relatively local. So it was a lovely little interlude. And
not like you to invite yourself somewhere, you know.
Well, it's, you know,
are you driving anywhere after this? He has a history of
Fran got the train
and get a train home.
Leeds are top the championship. I think their last game was sold out at home. So
sure it is,
I've never been to Reading, so you know,
it's a good stadium. It's only down the road from me. Yeah. And then you've got the Ireland-Wales game on the Saturday after Cheltenham. You could stay on for that in Cardiff. So
yeah,
there we are.
Watch Wales with the Grand Slam.
I'll be asking Fran for tickets for Cardiff.
All right, Johnny is a newly found racing or rugby fan as well. So,
but good racing this weekend. If you can get to Gorn or Navan, certainly you're seeing some top class action, and we're obviously boiling towards Cheltenham nicely now as well.
All right, good stuff. That is Friday Night Racing. We'll see you next week, folks. Good luck.
Friday Night Racing.
On Off the Ball.
And they're off.
Brought to you by Go Racing. Plan your day at the races at GoRacing.ie.